Hello and welcome. In the spirit of my brand new book, The Delicate Art of Transformation, I've been on a quest for truth. What does it actually take to create real, lasting transformation? And here you are on the precipice of something big. I don't think that's a coincidence that we should ignore. Welcome, my friend. Welcome to the True Transformation Summit. This is where true growth and transformation happens because sometimes it's about your mindset. You're working on your thoughts and your beliefs. Sometimes it's about connecting deeper with your body. Sometimes it's stepping into success and rewiring yourself for wealth. And sometimes it's a spiritual one. But when the right person says the right thing at the right time and it all clicks, those are the moments that make all the difference. And that is what this summit is here for. You're going to hear from some incredible experts who every single one I personally invited to be here because each of them have made an impact in my life. So listen with an open heart, do what they say, take what resonates, try the practices, get their free gifts, and let this space be the place where you find your next step. My name is Talia Joy. I'm your host. And if you want all the free gifts, the resources, and the only place where you can be entered for prizes, you can join the Insider Circle for free below. All right, without further ado, take a deep breath in. Think about what you are transforming, what you are here for. And let's dive into today's episode. Hello, Rajesh. Welcome to the show. I am so happy you're here. Welcome. How you doing?
I'm doing great.
This is going to be such a great conversation, and I thank you so much for being part of this. I invited you to this summit, reached out to you personally to ask for you to be here because when we had a previous episode here on the Awakening Her podcast, your energy was so grounded and you have a way of translating ancient wisdom into real life. And I just love everything that you stand for and what you're going to share with us. So I do sincerely thank you for being a part of this and sharing today. It's going to be a good one.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
So for anyone that's meeting you for the first time, could you just explain to yourself a little bit about what you do, what you're passionate about right now? Yeah, what your work is about.
Yeah, so I was born in UK, right? So I was born in London, UK, but I'm Indian by genes. So it's funny, my work has led me towards exactly what I am, right? Which is a unification of British and Indian, right? And I didn't know it when I was starting, but it was going to lead me down this path to share what I call unified teachings, right? Which is really Eastern teachings, you might call it a Western way of living, Western desires, and merging them to a point where both cease to exist. It just becomes this whole unified flow, right? So that's everything I'm about. That's everything I'm focusing on these days.
And so what you do today, I mean, I wanted to say, how has it been influenced by your own personal transformation? And it sounds like it is your personal transformation. I'd love to hear a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I got into yoga about 10 years ago, right? And before that, I was a bodybuilder. So I was a power lifter, I was lifting weights and, I was trying to build muscle and I was really interested in nutrition. I was interested in all of the teachings about energy and strength and power and how to slow down your mind. But when I entered that yoga class, something changed, right? Because it allowed me to connect the dots in terms of how food works, how we move through the world, how we use our muscles, and then how do we connect that with something a little bit deeper, right? So I started getting into meditation. I started understanding chakras and energy and leadership principles, let's say, and it all just started merging into one, right? And I started finding it a little bit confusing in a way because there'd be parts of me. There'll be one part of me which is, all right, like, yeah, I'm ready to work out and build strength and, look after my body. And there'll be another part of me which just wants to be in the present and, not do anything and just look at flowers and be at peace, and just do art or And then there'll be another part of me which wants to be very social or wants to have some kind of intimacy in the world. And another part of me would say, no, I don't need any of that, right? So my whole journey has been piecing together all of these needs that we have as humans and just making it work, let's say, in a way that there's no conflict within us.
That's really beautiful. There's so much there. And I can relate to that,
Mm.
how, it feels like there's this whole community. And I don't know if you've ever studied IFS, but IFS helps to touch on that a little bit of like, no, you really do have all of these different parts of us. And as you're describing, even personalities, there's the introvert that wants to live in a cabin in the woods, and the person who wants to travel with a pack of 10 friends all over the world, and the person, we have all these
Yeah.
different parts of us. Does that come into the unification that you're speaking about? Because I'd love to hear, how that blends in, or what you mean by a unified perspective.
Yeah, so I believe we all have certain desires, right? So we all wanna have some kind of abundance, right? So that might be financial abundance, that might be energy abundance, that just might be we just want to feel energy of fullness, right? Um, there's also this calling to something bigger than the things that we see in the material world, right? The things that we're looking at, things that we're stimulated by. So yeah, with the whole unification piece, um, I was trying to figure out how can I have all of this work where they don't kind of feel contradictory, where it's like, all right, I must let go of all my desires in the world, but then there's this part of me which does have these desires. What's like right? What's the right answer to this? Is what I was trying to figure out. So yeah, unification is basically a way to merge all of it together. So it still comes from spirit, it still comes from the truth and the heart inside of you. But it's a way to have it all exist, right? And it not be this kind of mind-led, ego-led thing that, hey, I have to have this thing to give me some sense of, importance or power. But at the same time, there's a natural feeling of calling of power, right? There's a true power inside of us. So yeah, unifying is trying to remove some of these uh, misleading ideas of power and abundance, and then come to what is natural within us, and then bring it all together, basically.
Hmm. Yeah, that feels, when you hear like you're already whole and the totality of who
Mm,
you are is enough and
mhm,
is, valid doesn't even feel right, because valid almost implies you could be, there could be a lack of validity, but it's like you just are.
yeah,
I am. I
yeah,
am that. I do have desires, and I also do have
yeah,
non-attachment or whatever.
yes.
How does that come in? I know you talk too about the masculine and the feminine. I'd love to hear, as we unify and we become aware of these different parts of ourselves, how that folds into that as well.
Yeah, so the thing is, right? I still want to grow. I still want to improve. I still want to become better. I still want to learn things, right? So on one side, you can say there's some of the spiritual teachings will say, no, we don't need to kind of move towards things. We don't need to add things. We don't need to grow. We have everything. But I believe that growth and having some level of purpose and something to work on, some improvement, is what creates this state of enjoyment in life, right? So that you might call this energy, which is growth, and it's going for it and it's taking action, right? And then there's this other side, which is like, hey, I don't want to do that from this place of feeling incomplete. Because if I'm doing that from this place of feeling incomplete, then all the things are coming from an incomplete beingness, right? So now there's this whole other person operating from scarcity. That's the thing we're trying to avoid, especially in the work that I'm doing. I want people to come into the state of wholeness to see their true power and then go ahead and do stuff from that place, right? Because now the most powerful version is on, right? The fire is on, and the fire can just spread and go everywhere now.
Yeah. Which changes the entire way that you look at your desires, your future, even the present
Yes.
moment. And I hear you, and that's something I feel, especially in when people talk about manifestation. It's like this external
Mm-hmm.
thing that, okay, I'm going to do the thing, I'm going to write out the thing, I'm going to visualize the thing this many times a day, and like hopefully it just shows up.
Mm-hmm.
It puts us as
Yeah.
separate from not only what we are, but from our desire. And it's when
Yeah.
people say the abundance that you desire is already here, and it's like, it's kind of
Yeah.
annoying to hear because I'm trying to manifest some
Yeah.
money. But as you're speaking to, it's like this, the lack of separation comes in as we start to experience the wholeness of who we are, and also experiencing what is right
Mm,
in front of us right now as well.
mm,
um,
mm,
yeah. So how do you think the masculine and feminine energy kind of comes into this within yourself,
mm,
or when it
mm,
comes to your
mm.
desires, to creating transformation in your life?
Yeah, yeah, perfect. Great question. So I feel like for me, and the way I will get it across to clients, right, is there's this knowingness inside, right? There's this truth and knowingness inside, right? We might call that this feminine energy, this intuition, right? There's this knowingness, there's this truth. And you might say, just like you mentioned earlier, all right, it's all going to come to me, I'm going to attract this. That's great, that's powerful. But I feel like also the other part of that is that there's this knowingness inside and it wants to be expressed. It wants to take action now. And it doesn't need thinking. It's just let's go and do this. Right? Like for example, times where I've wanted to go away and travel the world, right? I had to take action on that desire, right? That calling inside. And anytime I've gone anywhere, it's because I've really been called to go. I just need to learn something. Something's telling me, go and do this, right? And if I sit and wait, I could be waiting forever, right? And that might sound like quite a tangible example. Yeah, of course you have to book a flight or whatever. But even with other things, right? If I am in conversation with someone and I'm sensing something coming to me, right? And intuition, it's just some intuitions inside of me. I must speak this out, right? Whether that's in a professional relationship or with a romantic relationship, I must express that truth rather than keep it inside because that's fear blocking that from coming out, right? It's like that needs to be the full cycle of the in breath and out breath. It must be in and then expressed outwardly, right? So that's how I get it across is that there's this intuition and that intuition wants to come out. It wants to be expressed through our voice, through our throat, and through our action.
Yeah. And by bringing them together, it's where we tangibly kind of get shit done, for lack of better words, but
Mm,
also
mm,
where, as you're saying, we're in touch with the wholeness of who we are. Because I noticed
mhm,
that with maybe going after something or achieving something, as you're saying, even if it's
mm,
going on a flight or going to a place you're called to go, there is a dance of action and, as you're saying, intuition or allowing or trust or flow, creativity. There's always that dance. And if you're doing one without the other, even if you're really gifted at either just taking a whole bunch of action and investing in big moves, if you're really good at that, that's great. Or maybe you're really intuitive, really creative. You can see the visions of everything you want to create.
mm,
If you don't
mm.
anchor it down to the ground with the other, then we kind of, it feels like, I want to say, like looping energy. We kind of get stuck in
Yes.
these loops because we're almost, I just saw like a car, but only like the right wheels are working or whatever, right? You'd just be going
Yeah, yeah,
in
yeah.
circles. And I know sometimes you talk about that when we're trying to constantly fix ourselves or trying to overthink
Mm,
things.
mm,
Yeah, I'd
mm-hmm.
love to hear you speak to that. What about the people that are kind of stuck in their head or can
Yeah.
relate to the things that we're saying here?
Yeah, this is a massive thing, right? Because there's been times where someone's come into my world or they've started working with me and they've said all the kind of spiritual things that they've gone into and the healing journeys they've gone into. And I've helped them to stop them. Right? I've kind of intervened and I've said, some of this is becoming a bit of a crutch, right? Like some of this has created a problem on its own of like, you know what, I gotta, do this kind of spiritual thing. I gotta heal this thing because I'm having this challenge doing this stuff. And I've intervened sometimes and I've said, no, there's nothing wrong. And maybe you don't have to do that. Maybe you've just been brought into this ideology of that. And what if you were free from that completely and you could just express? Because sometimes what happens is the people that are overly introspective or spiritual, which I've been, by the way, they'll avoid taking action. Right? There's a resistance on that kind of expression of who they are, and that's really what it is. It's an expression of who I am deep inside is being covered off. So, all right, I got to kind of do something about that. And it takes some. I've got to do this work. Whereas sometimes it's uncomfortable or not even uncomfortable, but the root is you express who you are. You be courageous. You put that out there. You listen to that desire, right? That's always more freeing because it's something that's just true inside. It's calling you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's interesting how that masculine energy does bring a knowingness of who you are. Like I see like a strong, like, you know who the F you are, you know what the F you're here for, like get out and get to work type energy, which again, some people that comes naturally, and the softerness, the trust, the intuition is more difficult. For me, I'm definitely more in that creative, floaty. I actually have had times in my life where I'm like, fine, I have to be human. Like, fine, I'll come down to the 3D. And I don't mean down as in any kind of, but it's like I'm way better out there. I feel natural out there floating in the cosmos. And so that linear thinking, that be confident in who you are, stand tall in who you are, boundaries, all that kind of human-y stuff can be really difficult. And as you said, taking action, it's funny because for me, I find I can take action, but it was always a reaction. So I was really good at like creating all the things, doing all the things, but it was in that more frantic, I got to get the 10K months, or I have to have this end result, or so it's funny as I chill out too, it's like that balance of acting on inspiration, but making sure it comes from that authentic, centered place.
100%. Like the whole thing comes down to embodiment of who someone really is, right? And you know what I've seen? It opens up a whole other possibility of life existence, right? Feeling more free, confident, right? The relationships improve. You step into an identity that is just a whole nother experience, right? It's like we really step into who we really are or what that potential is. And it kind of comes even quicker. The things that we want come even quicker because there's just this true knowing that this is who I am. So if I'm this person, then I'll only do these things, right? I won't play small. I won't play in this kind of zone of safety or whatever.
Yeah, such an interesting journey being human. Sometimes
Right,
it's just
right. And
like
then
the
another day, one
dichotomy.
day you'll feel like that. Yeah. And another day you're kind of completely like fearful and whatever. And that, yeah, like you say, it's the human experience sometimes, isn't it?
Yeah, sometimes we just do have to laugh. And I love that you spoke about, I actually have a chapter in my book called The Transformation Trap. And I've done episodes before how you're talking about that endless feeling like we got to fix ourselves, or you achieve a thing and then it's like, okay, on to the next thing. Or, for a long time, people are really searching to uncover the money block, the relationship block. And it's like we're hunting for it, like lost keys in the couch. Like we're going to find this block and it's going to, and we've kind of evolved through that to soften a little bit and look at it from a broader perspective, which also brings me to something you speak about, the bliss state and blending. You were speaking about like Indian beliefs and mysticism and different things that different places that you've learned from, different parts of what you've learned. But I want to hear about this bliss state because I do feel we're moving out of just when I have the money, I'll be happy, and into how do I be that now? How do I feel that joy and that bliss and that pleasure right now? So I'd love to hear you talk about that.
Yeah. So in yogic wisdom, they talk about a state of ananda, right? A state of bliss. So when I started getting into this, because I had a very logical, scientific mind, I was like, how do I hack that? How do I achieve that? And I just started practicing things, right? I went down the traditional route of, all right, you do asana postures, then you do pranayama, breath work, you do meditation, the whole system behind it. And then I basically got into Kundalini yoga, right? It's about 9, 10 years ago. And that showed me that it's very possible to access states of bliss just by using your breath, using certain mantras, certain sequences, um, and removing obstacles to flow, right? So that includes like foods you're eating and things that are blocking the stomach. And then that also includes looking at emotional knots in the heart, where you might be holding something heavy from the past. That also might include certain things that are in your sacral chakra, right? Sexual things, shame, whatever, all of that stuff. But when we do work with all of that, when we kind of really see what's actually going on inside and optimize all of those centers and do certain practices, yeah, there is a state of bliss, right? But that's one way of looking at it. I'll also share another way, right? One way of looking at it, that's how I started, was like do all of these internal practices, Kundalini practices, breath holding. I'd do all these kind of very extreme things that would allow my brain to just enter into a state of bliss. But then I started discovering, okay, that's me sitting in my room and I'm in the state of bliss. But what about me engaging with the world and being in the state of bliss? And then I discovered other things, which is I went down a bit of a tantric path where, it's more on the feeling things that I'm uncomfortable with, but I have desire to feel, or intimacy, with a person. How can I start using that as a state of bliss? And then even purpose, right? I realized that if I give myself purpose each day, not this kind of grand purpose of what I meant to do, why I was born, right? It doesn't have to be that kind of intense because that can throw people off as well. They get wrapped up into that, right? It could just be I create purpose on the short term, in the month or the 3 months or the day or the week. And then I feel a state of bliss because now I've made the most out of my time on this earth. And what most people have a challenge with is they look at their age and then their birthday's passing and then they think, I'm not doing anything with my life, right? So we tackle this by saying, let's create purpose. So yeah, do all of these internal bliss state things, right? And then have purpose in your time on this earth. And then you amplify the level of bliss. And I've got a bit of a formula I could tell you about in a moment, a kind of a framework that it creates a state of bliss. But yeah, I'll start with that.
I love that. And I feel like that's something yoga taught me is like, can you bring the energy that you bring on the mat off the mat? Can you, and that
Yes.
I felt like as soon as I started practicing it and meditation, of course,
Yeah.
when you're touching that state of your inner Tahiti or your inner
Mm,
well-being, when you
mm,
access it, then it's more accessible when you're in traffic or when you're like mad at your boss or when
yes.
the news shows you something that, sparks fear because we're practicing it, right? So you're practicing being in bliss. I love that you said that, not just in my living room in my comfy zone with my neg champa and
Mm-hmm,
my music, but actually out in the world when we're starting to feel
mm-hmm,
like our energy is being drained or we're triggered or there's just busy stuff going on. And that is
mm-hmm,
almost to bring it back to the whole theme of true transformation. That almost feels like such a
mm-hmm,
key that you're talking about is like that true transformation in your beingness in
mm,
all of your life,
mm,
not just the one
mm-hmm,
fancy practice or the yoga mat
mm-hmm,
time. It's in all of the parts of who you are, even talking about the unification, the triggered part, the blissful part. It's like almost bringing
mm-hmm.
that into everything that you're doing. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, the thing I say to people sometimes is the meditation and the yogas are sometimes the easy things, right? They're things that we do. You know why they're easy? Because no one else is involved, right? It's easy because
Mm,
there's no one else involved, right? So like so many complexities disappear, right? So yeah, I meet a lot of people who can do all those practices. Yeah, they're hard workers. They'll go and work out. They'll do the meditation. They'll do all these things. It's easy because no one else is involved, right? The challenge and the real states of bliss are how can I be when there is a social aspect to this, when there's a relational energy, relationship dynamics, all that stuff, professional relationship dynamics, right? If you're working in your own business and then you're kind of proposing work to people, how are you showing up in that way, right? now can you still be in a state of bliss, in a state of presence, or are you kind of crunching into a small version of yourself, right? So 100%, right? I've given my clients challenges sometimes, and all the challenges are always involving other people, right? So I've told them, you've had this thing with this person. I want you to call them up, and there's certain frameworks around it, but just to get over certain things that have just been around for a while, right? Or I've even
Mm-hmm.
given clients challenges to do things that they've never done before in public settings, right? Go and perform in front of people, or go and do this, or go and say these things that feel very uncomfortable. I've even got them to call their dads, right? You've had the difficult relationship with your dad for how many years? Okay, let's like stop that. We can stop that now. You don't have to go and do all this inner work on your own to try and figure this. Let's like talk to this person that's right there. That's what I ended
Mm-hmm.
up doing. I ended up actually doing this stuff in real situations with people because that had the biggest transformation effect. Rather than me
Mm-hmm.
sitting here trying to do all this stuff about my dad or about my mum, they're still alive. I could go and just do it. And that's harder because, we have all this resistance around that, but that can create massive transformation.
Yeah, I hear you. It's also when you're willing to do the quote unquote tough thing, it's like there's a metaphor in there somewhere, I'm sure, but it's like the hardest thing gets you the farthest if you want to think about it like that. The clearing
Mm,
conversations that actually clear the thing that your throat is
yeah,
burning that you want to say, and you just say it. And then that relief, right?
yeah,
Just going toward the things that scare you in that way, especially if you're resourced, you have some tools. We don't want to always blindly go into traumatic things. We want to have
mm,
care with ourselves.
for
But
sure.
as you're saying, some of the biggest transformations I've had with people in my life came from me literally doing that, coming and taking
Mm,
responsibility for something, bringing something up, asking them their perspective, or whatever it is. And that's
mm.
not easy, but it is truly where we make change. And I love that you said it. It's with other people that we have the biggest challenge.
Yeah.
And it's so true. It's so true. As we start to kind of wrap this up, I would love to hear just, taking your own personal transformation
Mm,
into account and kind of thinking about that. What do you say through your journey that has just made all the difference? And what has really
mm,
caused that lasting transformation where you do truly feel that you approach life differently than you used to? I just would love to kind of hear
mm.
those overarching themes.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks for asking me that. So, I had social anxiety for most of my life, right? That's where all of this journey started. And some people don't
Mm,
believe me because I speak quite confidently these days. But I had challenges being myself, even with people I knew, right? I would kind of feel resistance or kind of hold back or whatever, or feel uncomfortable. And then in groups, it was worse, and public speaking was completely out of the kind of, I would never do that. I was scared of it, is what I would say, right? Petrified of being on the spotlight, right? So my whole journey has been, it's been, like you said, two or three things, right? Number one is, can I slow myself down, right? Can I bring myself into a state of presence, state of bliss? I call it energy mastery, right? How can I create energy mastery within myself? That's the first thing that's really helped. And yeah, yogic practices. There's many tools that I could recommend. Yogic practices, looking into oneself to see which parts are hurt, right? See what the truth is about myself, see what the true essence is. All of that is energy mastery. I'd wrap it around that, right? And the second thing I would mention is I'll just call it leadership. And leadership, I mean, in the sense of how we are socially relating to one another. So, me having social anxiety actually made me become an expert in this area because it was such a challenge for me, right? So, now I specialize in how people relate to others, right? Amongst all this whole unified model, the whole thing is about how do we relate with others and ourselves, right? So social challenges is one thing that's really helped me. So saying things that I really want to say, getting myself out there when I'm scared of what people might say. right? All of the things that involve other people and their fears in relation to me and my potential and my truth. Going and
Mm.
making challenges around that has been huge, hugely helpful. So that could be you go to a public speaking class, you go and say things to people that you love that you haven't expressed yet, whatever, right? That's definitely one area. And then the last thing is body in general, right? So mastering the body, that is in the sense of the body is not bothering me. The body is my companion. I'm putting it into the best way that it can be so that it can create that energy, so that it creates stability, so that it creates a solid state of groundedness within me.
I love that so much. And I love that you talk about the body, because all of this stuff that we're
Mm,
saying that's a bit more like we're talking about expansion and our bliss
mhm,
and these higher sort of concepts and whatever. But if we don't anchor it into the body, it's kind of like the masculine and feminine. It's like if we don't anchor it into
mm,
the body, then we're not getting the full picture. We're not getting the stereo sound of this experience,
mm,
because our channel, even for everybody that focuses on intuition, and your channel goes through your physical body. And when your physical body is
yeah.
bogged down, maybe you're exhausted, it's chemicals in our food, and we
Mm,
all do our best,
mm,
but it's everywhere. So the more we cleanse our body, and then our chakra systems too, and as much
mm,
as our body
mm,
can be clean and clear, you notice a massive difference. I'd always love to hear too your take on that, with just even simply
mm,
your
mm.
intuition and your presence and your ability to
Yeah.
be on the razor's edge of right now, because your body is less inflamed, it's less focused on other things. So I'd love to hear just
Mm,
your thought on that quickly about the body, because it just has been such a, some
yeah.
people think they should do certain things with their body, or it's about weight, or it's about muscle, but there's a whole, it's about
Yeah.
so much more than that.
Yeah, wow. Thank you for asking me that. This is one of my favorite areas to talk about, right? Because like you say, right, it's the system, it's the car, it's the vehicle. So for example, as simple as the stomach not being that full, because if the stomach is too full, it can cause lethargy, right? It can cause a brain that's foggy. And then taking that to another level and saying, all right, what kind of things are in the stomach and why is that creating an uncomfortable feeling? So then you can get down into like Ayurveda, where they talk about different food systems, different types and how we work, etc. But for me, right, even like I know people sometimes get wrapped up in all the Ayurvedic things and take that too far. I'll just keep it very simple, right? Is the stomach clear? Is it efficiently digesting the food? Because then that means the fire is on. In India, we call it the Agni, right? The fire. Is the fire on? If the fire is on inside of you, and it's calm at the same time, you're not kind of anxious and running around so much. If you get that balance of the fire and then calming energy, then you're in the most efficient state. And like you said,
Mm.
chemicals, all of that stuff. I don't have anything that has got chemicals in it. I don't even take multivitamins anymore like I used to because I'm trying to source everything from the food, right? And then doing certain practices that are going to keep my fire balanced. So yeah, the body is hugely important, even sleep. So in India, we have a specific way to sleep that will allow you to have better rest with less time needed, right? So you can sleep for
Mm.
less, but your quality is way higher. So you wake up in a regulated state, right, in a balanced state. So the body is, I kind of talk about it like this, right? Think of the body like a baby that you're taking care of. So you're taking care of a baby, you're feeding it well, you're resting it well, you're kind of making sure it's clean, right? You're making
Mhm.
sure it's not sick. But we sometimes forget that within ourselves and we think sickness is extreme. But in yogic tradition, we will even call little things sickness, right? Like if there's too much food in there and you're kind of walking around indigested, that's sickness. If there's something that's slightly off with your energy, that's sickness as well, right? Because it's not at the highest efficiency. And that can solve a lot of problems and that can take you into higher states of bliss. And then that means you can get into flow. And then that means you're going to speak to people with more confidence. You're going to be more forthcoming. Your pure masculine energy will come through. Your pure feminine energy will come through because it can flow through the system. So yeah, the body is like the number one layer, the first layer, let's call it. and then everything else can be assisted through that vehicle.
Yeah, it is. I love that you said that. It's like the first layer. So if we, and I know a
Mm,
lot of people that this is very common, can be so focused on the spiritual, the energetic. They can be gifted talent, gifted, channels or psychics or whatever, but completely step out of the body or not nurturing the body. It can feel tough to kind of balance it all, right? But when you look at the body as
mm,
the first layer, I've
mm,
seen this intuitively with the chakras before. I've described this to the community that say the root chakra has congestion. It doesn't mean your crown
mm,
chakra or your third eye isn't powerful, but they show it to me. My
mhm,
team shows it to me like a hose, where if the hose is
mm.
kinked at your root chakra, there's only going to be little dribbles of water. But if you unkink that, it can flow, and you don't have to work so
Yeah.
hard on just activating the third eye or just that will come
Mhm,
as the rest of the flow happens. So with the body, sometimes we're trying to do all this spiritual work and gain clarity and what's next for me and all this. But sometimes when we get a really good rest and we're drinking more water, eating less of the things that bother and inflame our body, those ideas
mhm,
flow in, that natural
mhm.
spring of, what would be fun, or maybe it's the throat.
Yeah.
You're more easily able to speak your voice because you're looking
Yeah.
after your body. So I encourage all of you that sometimes hear body stuff as a should, or it's just for
Yeah.
aesthetics to look a certain way.
Yeah.
It's so beyond that. It's an extension of loving and caring for yourself. And it's an extension of being fully expressed, whether it's intuitively or in your confidence, and everything that you're saying too. It is so important.
100%. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. This has been such a good conversation. Is there anything left that you want to say about, this true transformation? And as we make our way through, all of us have learned so much about mindset and beliefs. But today, what we're talking about too is this like unification and the bringing it all together. So, is there anything else that you want to leave everybody with? And is there something that we can do today? A perception shift
Mm.
or an exercise, maybe a challenge? Yes, maybe a
Yeah.
challenge. Yeah, I would love to just hear summing that up and letting us know what we can do to kind of take this and go with it.
Perfect. So what I would usually suggest, right, if I had you in front of me as a one-on-one client, I would always start with, yeah, let's clear obstacles out, right? So to be unified means I want to remove anything that is not unified out of my system. Right. So
Mm,
first I would work on that kind of body level, right? So how can we attune your body in the right way and get certain rituals and routines in place? So if anyone here doesn't have a kind of morning routine, I would suggest having some kind of morning routine to start the day off well, because we can start our day with anxiety and then it's just kind of leading from that place and the whole day is getting created. I would start with getting into the body in the mornings, right? Having a specific ritual. And when I say specific ritual, a specific process that is good for you in that moment, right? I wouldn't say there's a one size fit all, but whatever your season is right now, something that's going to assist with that, right? So really, when I say unified, I'm talking about what is happening in your life stage in this moment, right? Whatever is needed for you right now. You think of it like an actor who is getting ready for a movie role. They will change their body, they'll change their fitness routine, they'll change what they're eating, they'll change their hairstyle, they'll change their whole demeanor to get ready for that movie, right? So that's what I say is the same thing. Whatever phase you're in right now, whether that's like, all right, I want to start a business, I want to go forth with this, or I want to create myself into a more grounded state, everything has to revolve around that. Every single routine, everything has to be focused on that purpose that you have right now. Right. So
mm,
that's what I'd say, right, about unification is let's bring everything into alignment. So now the foods are working for a purpose, right? So for
mm,
example, me right now, I'm lifting more weights again. I'm lifting heavy weights. I've got a lot of muscle on me right now because in this moment right now, I'm trying to create more masculine energy in my system, right? Because that's what's required. But it might be in another phase, and it might be very soon. I don't want to do that. I need to slow that down because something else is required to come into me, into my channel, into my actions. So I want to do everything. Every single thing has to be serving that purpose, right? The foods I'm taking, the energy that creates, the things I'm doing. I believe everything in our life is to learn and to train and to become better, right? For this life that we're in. You know, whatever the phase is that you are in, nurture that and put everything towards that. That's what I'd call the unified. And then in terms of actions, I would just get people to sit down and journal on what they think those things are that need to happen. Because we know inside, right? Deep down, we know everything that is going to align. Journal, write down what those things are, and then you'll have this plan for the next month. And then just commit to the plan, right? Just spend the whole month focusing on this very requirement for your current stage in life, and don't think so far into the future. So that's probably going to be my closing words, because that makes it actionable in the now, and it gives people things to kind of think about a bit more strategically as well.
Thank you so much. I love that. It makes me want to like go out and do it right now. I'm like, okay, we're going for a walk
Yeah,
today.
that's it.
I love that. And what is something that you do to really have yourself moving into your future and have it be intentional?
Yeah, so I go very deep inside my heart, and I look at the thing that is calling me that's consistent, right? So there's things that are passing by and things that we might want to do on the day, or it might just come up in a moment, right? Those things, sometimes I'm not going to action them because they might just be like an emotional reaction or whatever. But there's things that are very deep in my heart that keep calling me, right? Things I want to share, things, the version of me that I know I am, right? So what I'll do each day is I'll reconnect with that thing that I am, that is consistent, that's always there. And it knows what my next level is. It knows what it wants to express. It knows why I'm here on this earth, right? And if I go to that, and then I start my day from that place, right, and do all of my rituals or whatever, now all the training I'm doing, right, even lifting weights, even yoga, even meditation, all of that is because of this person that's there. It was anchored in right from the beginning of this is who I am, this is what is my direction, this is what I know to be true, and now let me do all of these things rather than just doing these things randomly all over the place because oh, I want to feel relaxed and oh, I need to do this healing thing. Because I did that. I went through this phase where I was just doing so many different things for healing and this yoga and this kind of thing. And it was good, but it wasn't tied and anchored into deeper reason and deeper purpose. So that's what I'll do each day. I'll come back to this, and then it makes my actions flow a lot easier from that point.
Mm. Yes, it just sounds like everything then gets done with intention versus a
Mm-hmm.
lack of intention. It's like if you don't put in the address in
Mm-hmm.
the GPS, you're just going to drive around randomly, right? So when you
Yeah.
touch base with that I am, that all that is, that space inside of you, even the next meal you eat or how you move your body or the way you think when you open your eyes after that meditation or that session, you're going to have now intention, and it's going to be like this piece of, okay, this is who I am, this is what I'm about, and then that's going to naturally influence all the choices you make in the day, which is so powerful. You also have a free gift for us of a journal morning ritual that you can integrate into your day to speak to, as you were saying, to set up your day, not just in anxiety or in panic or in this, but in an intentional way. So I'll make sure to put that in the show notes below the free gift. Thank you again so much. This has been so good. Where do you hang out if someone was just wanting to be in your community? Where do you go on social media?
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram. It'll be Raj Gorsia, so you'll find me there, unless my username changes at one point, who knows. But right now it's Raj Gorsia. Facebook is Raj Gorsia. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'll be posting slightly different content over there. And yeah, those are probably the best channels to find me right now.
Excellent. Thank you again, Raj. This has been so good. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank you for tuning in to the True Transformation Summit. If you want to take your own personal transformation deeper, grab a copy of my book, The Delicate Art of Transformation, and make sure to tune in to the next guest expert. Have a fantastic day.